Fun fact, that number is now over 3 million, which, ironically, the comic to break that number was the one referenced in Glass. You know what, let's just fix that and that. Hello, my name is M. Night Shyamalan, and here's an artistic tilt-down revealing this opening shot was in a mirror. Oh, what's that? Why, yes, my character being introduced will be called Mr. Glass. I love this movie. Elijah and his mother wearing purple right from day one.
There were no problems. Did you drop him?
This first pan over to the doctor's actual face, who has so far only been seen in the mirror, to bring the gravity of the situation into focus.
It appears that your baby has sustained some fractures while inside your uterus. His arms and his legs are broken.
Which is brutal. That doesn't get much more late 90s than this. And if it's James Newton Howard 90s, it's a win. There are few scenarios in which this makes David look good. I mean, even if he's a widower, it comes off at best a little too thirsty. Which is a testament to so many things. Bruce Willis being generally likable and sympathetic in the long run, and the way Knight wrote David allows us to empathize with him as a flawed, broken person.
Do you like football?
Not really.
Such a rote answer for him, he doesn't even think twice. He had to quit to be with his wife, so it's part of who he is now.
You looking for any male synchronized swimmers? I'm thinking about getting into that. I'm afraid of water. Think that's a problem?
It just exhilarates me when a script is this well thought out. The joke about synchronized swimming adds to sleazy David just lying through his teeth about everything, except that he is afraid of water. What's presented as a joke is actually the truth. I know I'm being hard on David here. For all intents and purposes, he and Audrey are separated. I mean, this train ride is his trip back from a job interview in a different state. I just like that the setup of our two main characters are the opposite of what you might expect. Elijah is introduced broken right from day one, making us immediately sympathize with him, while our hero is presented like this. Married man bad. Kuleshov effect in action right here. Because we know the context, we project judgment, disappointment, even disdain onto this girl's facial expression. But her expression is actually fairly neutral, and at her age, she probably has no concept of what just happened. But David is also experiencing the Kuleshov effect, so he needs to leave her gaze. Okay, this is a win that I'd typically pull for the conclusion, but I'm leaving it here because it's early in the movie and it informs so much of why I love Knight and Unbreakable. A locked-off camera with your subject in the background isn't some insanely difficult camera technique, center frame symmetrical composition wasn't new or groundbreaking, and it's not like Knight invented cool blue color grading. But put it all together and it's storytelling, which is still the best thing happening in this scene. David is in the background being told he's one of 2 survivors while we see the other survivor bleed out and die in the foreground in real time, solidifying the absolute inexplicability of David's survival. David is center frame but is leaning away from the center throughout the scene as if he's trying to escape the spotlight. The scene is graded with a cool palette so that David's greenish yellow shirt sticks out like a sore thumb, further separating him from the rest of the ordinary, broken, bleeding world. This is our introduction to David, the reluctant, unbreakable superhero. This was our introduction to David, the broken man, blending in and conforming to his surroundings. Now he stands alone inside a comic frame, nonetheless. Hugging. You can even hear the distant sounds of the train when David is leaving the hospital, as if it's seared into his hearing, like superhero tinnitus. Being unbreakable doesn't make you unshakable. The start of a common theme that Elijah expounds on later. The note is even written in a comic font. Also, you might get tired of hearing the word glass, but here we are again, David seeing Elijah's note through glass that Elijah put on his glass windshield, and the next scene begins with David feeling enveloped in Elijah's question, shown by him beginning the scene in the glass of the mirror. While visually embodying the Green Guard or the Overseer by watching over people he's there to protect, as well as hearing a subdued version of his triumphant music, we then cut to David's face and realize he clearly isn't fulfilling his needs. And watching men do something he was so much better at wouldn't make that any easier. A camera push in emphasizing that David is starting to take this idea seriously, and it allows us to as well. Reintroduction of Elijah at 13, again in glass and in his signature purple. A character-defining, trilogy-defining, life-defining moment. A limited edition comic, the cover of which is the first piece of art we see Elijah showing in his store. Cover art depicting a strong man in green and a beast in yellow battling inside a purple present wrapped in purple tissue paper. His mother set the course of his life right down to the moment of his death. It all happened under his control. The other colors only pop because of the backdrop of purple. The world would never have seen the beast or the Overseer if it weren't for Mr. Glass. And it's exactly why it's given such ceremony. We all got the feeling that it's just about the comic book in general. Comics define Elijah's world broadly, but it's this specific one that sets his life in motion. All as a result of his mother's push to not pity himself and take his life into his own hands, even if it meant pain. Come on!
You call me Mr. Glass at school, because I break like glass.
You make this decision now. Your whole life, you will always be afraid. They say this one has a surprise ending.
Even on his second widely successful movie, it's like Knight was predicting his memeability. One last time, adult Elijah now introduced in Reflection in Glass.
Do you see any Teletubbies in here?
I get it, I truly do, but like, also, how you gonna teach your kids to appreciate art if you never let them see it? I'm sure he's just gonna hang it on his wall. Anyway, Elijah needs patrons and audience members alike to know that comics are serious business. That's his mythos. It insults him that this realistic depiction or something he believes is real will go to a child. And once more, we see David meet Elijah through glass as well as being framed inside the window panes just like, you guessed it, a comic panel.
I believe comics are our last link to an ancient way of passing on history. When the characters reached the magazine, they were exaggerated, chewed up in the commercial machine, got jazzed up, made titillating cartoon for the sale rack.
This is what I was talking about when David's hand was shaking. Shyamalan wants it to be clear that David could exist in our world.
Couldn't there be someone else, the opposite of me at the other end?
Elijah talks about David being the other end of his spectrum, and David's musical flourish plays subtly underneath the eerie score. Glass chandelier pointing down at David? Serendipitous that Ian Embankment would drive off an embankment. More importantly, this article about the train hints that there was nothing wrong with it, meaning sabotage. Again, hearing the train in the back of his mind. You almost don't even notice it like it's part of the background noise, which is exactly how it would feel to David at this point. I mean, trains run all through Philly, so it could literally be background noise, but think about how haunting that would be anyway.
I'm prepared for any answer, and it won't affect me. The answer won't affect me. It won't affect me either way. Have you been with anyone?
No.
There's always something surreal but also palpable about Knight's dialogue. It's so on the nose, but this is how people talk to each other when they're uncomfortable. Again, maybe it's not groundbreaking cinematography, but shooting David behind bars since he's still locked in his normalcy, his stage 1 ordinary world, as well as locked in a life that brings him sadness. It's just not something we were seeing at the time in comic book movies. Also, as we'll see over and over, it's a comic frame. It's kind of dumb that anyone was surprised, myself included, that Elijah turned out to be a mastermind supervillain with that trench coat. As David gets weary of Elijah again, which, by the way, he always seemed to have a feeling about Elijah, which he ended up being right about, further lending to the idea that David's gift is not as literal as depicted for us. But how do you visualize a sixth? No, they're different. Stop it. But as he starts to get uncomfortable, the camera pulls away from their conversation, making us feel like we want David to follow the camera and exit the conversation. World building. Just a few seconds on screen to explain the nitpicky question of how the crap does Elijah drive anywhere without breaking his butt on every pothole. Now we're put on edge by the camera shake leading Elijah down the walkway. Glimpses of Elijah's purple lining. Well, there was your first mistake, thinking your namesake should inform Kane material choice. But this insanely stressful and then ruthlessly brutal scene is precisely why the flashlight dropping scene in Glass was so tense. And it was all worth it for the confirmation. In his mind, Elijah is willing to sacrifice whatever it takes to expose the truth, even himself, as it were.
They say you can run the 40 in 4.3 seconds.
I've heard.
Good luck going pro without an agent. Too soon. Too soon.
You think you could have beaten up Bruce Lee?
No.
The sound effects of the iron bending and the look on David's face sell the inhuman quality of this lifting. This is David surpassing his human limitations. Every time weight is added, he feels like it's the peak of his strength, only to find out that it's all just in his head, and since his muscles can't be broken or torn, he can't give himself a hernia. He can push harder without fear of injury.
Should never do anything like this.
And every time they add more, he makes Joseph move a little further away. This time he lifts the camera as well. Poor Kevin Wendell Crumb. I'm sure it'll all work out for you in the end.
Lay on the bottom of the pool for 5 minutes, and when they pulled him out, he was dead.
Apparently, David can die from drowning and then still be okay. Good to know.
He'll die, Joseph.
Just shoot him once.
Joseph, listen to what your mother...
What a freaking tense scene. We have no clue, still, honestly, if he has bullet immunity.
The bullet is just going to bounce off me and I'm not going to be hurt.
Fun fact, this scene is apparently based on a story from George Reeves' TV Superman that may or not be true about a kid bringing a gun to a signing and then the scene playing out almost exactly the same, except Soup said the bullet would ricochet and hurt someone else.
And friends listen to each other. They don't shoot each other. Do they, Audrey?
No shooting friends, Joseph.
Oh, it's so tense, but still funny, but oh, it's still so tense. The drawing in front of them depicts a hero in the shadow of the clutches of an evil, clawed villain's hand as Elijah tries to pull David back in.
There have been 3 major disasters. I watched the aftermath of that plane crash. Watch the carnage of the hotel fire. 737 crashes on takeoff. A hotel fire downtown, too.
I love that while Shyamalan is telegraphing to the audience that Elijah was responsible for the disasters, this is now the third time he's brought them up, Elijah is also showing that it hasn't dawned on him yet who he is. He's so out of touch, he just casually brings them up over and over.
Heroes don't get killed like that. Normal people do, right?
Again, good to know for the future, since this movie firmly establishes David as a hero, right? Okay, so now that we're hitting the fifth time something or someone is flipped upside down and or then flipped right side up, or someone has to tilt their head to see things from a different perspective, I'm feeling a motif. It very well could just have been a stylistic choice by Knight, but the easiest narrative reason would be the idea of opposites. It's all leading to what the inevitable has to be. Elijah is the upside down version of David. This movie is about perspectives and opposites.
How much for this one?
Knight doesn't get enough credit for his deadpan comedy.
I had a nightmare. I didn't wake you up so you could tell me that it was okay.
What a crush you human moment. It's such a convoluted statement that we all immediately understand. One of those things that's no one's fault, but it's still there.
That's where this group, the Coalition of Evil, tried to ascertain the weakness of every superhero because they all have one.
And even the Shamrock Coalition of Evil was foreshadowed. I think there's a misconception about this scene. This isn't David miraculously remembering what happened after forgetting. He never forgot, we just didn't know. It would be easy for him to explain the doorway as adrenaline and the rest he needed to keep to himself so he could be with Audrey.
Hey man, are you hurt?
Real life doesn't fit into little boxes that were drawn for it.
Lining up that line with David going from framed by the pillars to the swarm of humans in the terminal. The potentially most realistic, making it the most depressing idea presented by this film is that David is one man and there's no way he could stop all these terrible people. The latter two being people that need to be stopped. It's a sour choice to escalate the crimes beyond what's palatable, and I give Shyamalan credit for going there. Sometimes you just have to go for the murderers. It's almost like Knight can't help but compose beautiful shots, saving some kids. What a terrifying reveal. I've always loved the way the curtains hide him until the wind blows just right. There are a lot of scary things that happen in this movie. The buildup of this entire scene as David creeps around the house, never knowing when the bad guy might show up, is tension epitomized. But the climax of all that being just some innocuous, life-giving water? Yeah, I wouldn't even fake this scene for a movie, let alone try to survive it in real life. Top tier, worst nightmare right there. Hey, James Newton Howard, take all the wins. I mean, you two kids, saving that stranger that helped against the other stranger. Oh, this score, this triumph, this confirmation of what Joseph wanted to be true, what we all wanted to be true. The swell of the music creates a feeling of victory as David becomes the hero. This scene still brings tears to my eyes, which is weird since it's a scene with a dude choking out another dude, but that's credit to the storytelling that came before. And as much as this is a fight, I love that David really embraces his power set, never even throwing a punch. He just puts the guy in a rear naked choke and holds on while he gets hit. And much like his shaking hands after the accident, he's still just a guy. He hasn't done this and the adrenaline is going to be pumping. And once more, just so we get it, it doesn't all work out because it's not a comic book. Like she's made of feathers. Did it involve drowning? That's a good way to crush that stone cold heart of yours. Seriously, one of the best and most emotional scenes ever. A mostly silent communication between father and son whose relationship has been strained over the truth of his power. A father admitting to his son that he was wrong while also becoming an even bigger symbol in his son's eyes. It's a scene that encapsulates the father-son relationship literally and metaphorically. A dad being able to actually fill that role that all kids see their dads in.
There's the soldier villain who fights the hero with his hands.
The Beast uses his teeth a lot, but I get your point. A little self-indulgent to have that comic based on your own agency there, Fury.
When you woke up this morning, was it still there? The sadness?
No.
The price of David's happiness is learning who Elijah really is, which would put a damper on that happiness. Even now, being unsure about David, Elijah was preparing for his next test. The best and scariest thing about this supervillain, arch-nemesis, whatever you want to call Elijah, is that you don't need to suspect him. Disasters like this happen all the time, and it'd be safe to assume he wasn't responsible for all of them. Maybe these were just ones he tracked before getting involved. However, James Cole was there for that one, Brad Pitt too.
To not know your place in this world. To not know why you're here.
But as I think this video has shown, it's barely even a twist if you're looking for it. It wouldn't make sense any other way, and that's exactly what makes a good twist. As the realization settles in for both of them, the camera hurriedly pulls away from both.
Now that we know who you are, I know who I am.
And in that way, he wins. That's all he wanted. And holy shnikes, Batman, Samuel L. Jackson is putting on a seminar. The mix of guilt with elation, the break in his voice, he's somehow proud and ashamed with one expression and tone of voice. This movie isn't the same without either of these men.
In a comic, you know how you can tell who the arch villain's going to be? He's the exact opposite of the hero.
I feel like you could walk away from this movie wondering why Elijah gave himself up and not realize that this line right here explains it succinctly.
See the villain's eyes? They insinuate a slightly skewed perspective on how they see the world.
He didn't know he was the villain. He realized it shortly before allowing David to touch him. He didn't know what David's powers would be or what side that would put each of them on. And there's nothing that says he identified with any of the characters in the comics he read until this moment.
And most times they're friends like you and me.
Also, at least they go on to stop Hans's brother together.
They called me Mr. Glass.
Ha! Audrey's maiden name was in Verso. Starting to think that upside-down choice was a deliberate motif after all. I saw Unbreakable on vacation one summer as an uncultured 15-year-old because my much wiser 22-year-old brother said it was a different kind of comic book movie. I fell in love immediately, but probably couldn't have told you why. I'm now an uncultured 34-year-old and can tell you that it was scenes like this. It was so different from anything I'd seen before, not to mention what superhero or comic book movies it offered at the time. Unbreakable is the secret but not so secret comic book movie that... It's like once someone points it out to you, you can't not see all the hints. The flat center framing common in comic panels combined with extreme high and low angle shots as well. Or the actual frames inside frames made by doorways, curtains, even train seats. You could start pulling this movie apart frame by frame to build a comic book. Shots are usually long and drawn out as if you're staring at a still page. Some scenes are actually one camera angle for the entire scene. Even the alliteration of David Dunn's name, like Peter Parker, Billy Batson, and Matthew Murdock before him. You probably noticed how often I bring up camera movements. The camera is like a living, breathing character in this film, something used more in horror but works really well here. Creeping up on characters, even sometimes taking over their point of view, making you feel what the characters are feeling, or even better, making you feel what you want the characters to be feeling. DP Eduardo Sea had a lot to do with that. You also might have found yourself rolling your eyes a few times in this video because of connections that I drew or meanings I inferred. But like I said last week, it's why I love this visual medium. Maybe things weren't consciously intended by Shyamalan, but that doesn't mean it was just a flip of a coin. Can't artists create compelling art subconsciously? Could David's lockers have been painted green because in his unfulfilled life, it's the closest he gets to being the hero he was born to become? Lindsay Ellis has a great video on the death of the author I recommend, sort of looking at it from the other side. Ultimately, I'm willing to give Shyamalan credit for how good this movie is, regardless of the details. Shyamalan and Bruce Willis. Bruce is very subdued and can feel one note at times in this film, but he nails the juxtaposition of a physically unbreakable body with what we clearly see as a broken heart and mind. You can also look at it as the wall that he's put up between himself and his family is unbreakable. No matter how much Audrey reaches out, he doesn't let his guard down until he fulfills his purpose. Sort of another midlife crisis allegory from the time when the scariest thing going on for a guy like David was Y2K. Like I pointed out, our mains are introduced as opposites, even opposite from where they end up. And while it serves as a great misdirect, it's also something Shyamalan did purposefully to ground this movie. To ground even the terrifying and heinous actions of Elijah Price. To force you to feel sympathy for a mass murderer, a very literal broken man trying to figure out how he fits into the world, destroying it in the process. Make no mistake, there's no sunny side to Elijah's crimes. They're evil, and it doesn't matter how confused he may have been. Wearing Glass, I had a hard time feeling that triumph we were given at the end. I leave Unbreakable at least agreeing that the way the movie wants me to feel is warranted and earned, and very few movies have left me this uneasy in the best way possible. Elijah believed he had a purpose, and once he found out what it was, I think it destroyed him. It could be an Alanis Morissette lyric, or maybe empowered him if you look into the future. There was no cost too great to find his antithesis and give meaning to his life, or at least that's what he thought. I truly believe Elijah didn't see himself as the villain. In the end, he realized not only that he obviously was the villain, but that he was wrong, and that the cost was too high. That's the beauty of this film. It fits so perfectly inside the comic framework, but ends up telling a story about characters that were ahead of their time. You could interpret this ending as Mr. Glass fully embracing his identity and in the same breath immediately discarding and renouncing it. Or maybe he's just remorseful for what he sees as his only path. Text endings are whatever, but this ending, it's something else. I'm not pretending like Glass doesn't exist, but this is still my David Dunn story. This movie is actually pretty divisive, something I wasn't entirely aware of before researching it. Coming off The Sixth Sense and then delivering another twist is probably Shyamalan's greatest regret. No one will ever walk into another one of his movies without expecting it now. And since it was not the best thing about The Sixth Sense, but the thing people remember and talk about, he really had no chance with this one. Had this been his first movie, I don't think it would have gotten nearly the mixed reception it did. It was also sold wrong, but hey, stood the test of time and it's one of my favorites. Look, I'm not saying Blumhouse didn't have anything this good before Split, but some of their best films started with Split, so win for being part of this. And right out of the gate, you already know you're in for OG Shyamalan. I really feel like there was this sigh of relief during the opening shot. Slowest dolly zoom that pulls the already isolated Casey even farther away from the group.
Can't invite everyone in my art class except for one person without social networking evidence inflicting more pain on that person.
I mean, I hate that our current culture allows social media to have such a huge impact on people's formative years, but her response is pretty great. Whether you want to call it a pity invite or not, she was trying to save Casey's feelings.
And there was that rumor that went around that she just kept running away from home.
So just every line. Yeah, every line. Okay, so the entire twist, the entire crux of the film is set up right here, explaining why Casey is the way she is. This is writing acuity. And visual acuity as Casey tries to hide in the shot reverse shot. This is very likely the Steadicam operator with some crew approaching, but I like to think of it as Kevin, Hedwig, Patricia, and Dennis, all being represented. Just these smooth pans side to side revealing different things at different times. Ugh. Dennis is so detail-oriented, he almost doesn't notice Casey until she tries to open the door, since she initially wasn't trying to escape or antagonize him. Unnerving score unnerves me.
Hurt yourself.
Advice that makes sense coming from someone who's been sexually abused her entire life.
Everything's okay. We're okay.
Optimism? So after seeing the movie all the way through, the little smile on the happy girl is heart-wrenching compared to what she's like now. Also, note that her uncle is introduced before her father, and he's telling her the story. I can't even win that.
Father of one of the students woke up dazed in King of Prussia.
There's your first real hint if you've seen Unbreakable as many times as I have. You might remember it takes place in Philly, which is like half an hour from King of Prussia Mall.
We can win. He'll hurt us. No. Shut up.
There's this double duty going on where we know Casey's dad taught/trained her in what we can assume is survival at least. So the first thing this does is set her apart in that regard.
Make sure you put your gloves on after you finish. Your feet and your hands get cold first out there.
But once you know she's an abuse survivor, there's also an undertone of being realistic about the direness of the situation. As in, she's been here before and knows to be calm and think everything through.
We don't even know what this is yet.
And then the survival side is nailed home with her dad teaching her about hunting. Yes, drinking and hunting do go together. Don't at me, it's a thing. But when you start to consider that her uncle is always handing her dad a beer, ugh. I hate that I'm gonna keep pointing out things that make me cry inside. It's great writing, but it feels wrong to win it. Actually, let's do this. We'll start another win counter for really gross, awful things that happen to be evidence of good writing. Okay, there. This applies too. I think it's most interesting that we actually only see Barry very briefly in the end, but Dennis is so good at pretending to be Barry, even Dr. Fletcher was tricked, if not for all his meticulous straightening around her office.
I don't believe it. Yeah. No offense. That, I need to buy that.
Oh, good. Well, at least now we know you're the best judge of these kinds of things.
Don't worry.
Why would we worry? Oh, what a reveal. And let's just throw some wins at McAvoy for not going full Doubtfire and being a believable, serene British female. Also, since this is the first win that really deals with DID, I can add a win for what I'm going to call DID accuracy. I was actually lucky enough to have a dialogue and get some notes from some people very knowledgeable about DID, and they confirm that most of this is realistic, including different accents and two alters conversing. They mentioned the outfits were probably a stretch, but I think that's more for the audience's sake. So I'll be adding in some DID accuracy wins occasionally that will be coming from Nebula.
You speak of them like they're supernaturally gifted, like they have powers or something.
Funny you should say that.
That you are sacred food.
Maybe he has a dog or something. Think he's gonna feed us to his dogs?
Cause that's better? Is that? That's not better. Gotta love the child's drawing being shown coming out of Hedwig's file, leading right into his introduction.
And he'll do awful things to you. I have blue socks too.
Non sequiturs just always get me.
They don't tell me much. I just ate a hot dog.
Don't know how they think.
No, they don't tell me much.
I really like that rather than explaining DID to Casey for the purposes of the audience, and one could argue her question was meant to probe the rules of DID, but since Alters wouldn't know what the others think, he responds exactly like a 9-year-old would, and confirmed by Nebula for accuracy, since the identities are different people.
How old are you?
9?
I also love the way he sits up tall when she asks that. Ah, McAvoy.
Okay.
The sincerest of creepy excitement.
That's enough being funny.
Love that even though Hedwig was having a hard time opening the door, Dennis pushes right through the girls, since your perception is your reality. 2 teenage girls are generally going to be stronger than a 9-year-old boy. The constant long take aesthetic ramps the tension and it always makes you uneasy.
I thought I lost you.
Sharp, high-pitched, abrupt music with the jump scare cliche dodge. Barely even call it a jump scare.
Taking notes in different handwritings about separate things at the same time.
I remember learning in a psych class in college about different things that happen to people if the connection between the hemispheres of the brain were severed, so I never totally doubt things like this, though nothing to back it up if it's real.
Is this where our sense of the supernatural comes from?
Yeah, kinda, at least in the Shyamalan verse. Going full Barry would be tough for Dennis at this point after the unpleasantness at the zoo, and you can see it on his face. It's not every actor that you could do a long take close-up for this long, but with McAvoy you can see him trying to sell Dennis impersonating Barry.
Please believe me, I'm Barry.
Ooh, that subtle irritation, but held back just enough so that it could be Barry just getting agitated.
You're getting a little softer on the middle, Jay.
Is it weird that the writer feels the need to make his characters call him out for being chubby?
Good job, big brother.
Ugh.
I've heard that Asian people's music aids digestion.
Definitely. That's why our meals are always accompanied by K-pop!
Good for you. It's crooked.
At least one thing that Dennis and Patricia have in common, which lends itself to them being aligned in their beliefs.
Tigers have only 30 teeth. That's 12 less than a dog. I thought that was a fun fact.
Listen, I'll be the judge of what are fun facts. For instance, in addition to that zoology lesson, Patricia also offers this one.
They're crepuscular, right? Means they travel around during dusk and dawn.
Which are perfectly fun facts someone working at a zoo would acquire. The chair doesn't shatter into a million pieces, as is the movie chair cliche. Another stressful escape long take. Nope.
The beast? He's coming for you.
It's at this point that Split's Beast has reminded me of Infamous 1 and 2 and how gosh darn good those games are. That's right, Split gets a win for similar imagery and sharing a name.
Mr. Dennis? He says you wear a lot of shirts.
Another hint at what's actually going on with Casey. Combination of being a survivor and probably wanting to hide her scars.
I can wish myself into the light anytime I want. Barry just has to keep sitting in his chair if I want him to. That's why Dennis and Miss Patricia said I could be with them.
It's actually sort of crazy that Dennis says this to Claire earlier.
You shouldn't trick children.
When you realize that Patricia and Dennis are just using Hedwig to subdue the rest of the alters.
No, can I kiss you? So you want to? I mean, I don't know much about kissing though.
Yeah.
Love? No, nope. Can't even make the joke. You know, because usually when people kiss, I just say love, but nah. Pretty sure consent doesn't apply when it's for your kidnapper. How not to kiss or treat other humans lessons, even if you're 9? How's that?
You might be pregnant now.
And reproduction lessons also.
I get into trouble on purpose so I can get sent to detention to get away from everyone so that I can be alone.
Well, that's just straight up heartbreaking, especially after hearing her classmates' opinions of her in the beginning.
How this beast can crawl on walls, using the slightest friction and imperfections to hold his body.
Have to love the ridiculousness of how the beast is described, almost like a double red herring where you think, oh, they're just making it sound dumb, so I'll think it's real, and then it'll end up not being real. Or did I just get involved in a land war in Asia? Oh man, that facial switch where you can really see a new person sitting there. Which is another DID accuracy confirmed. Alters often have to pretend to fit into certain situations.
Because he resides in the train yard, as the story goes. Because Kevin's dad left on a train.
Here's your second tie-in to Unbreakable, Eastrail 177. I might be reading a little too much into this, but I think Casey is napping on the floor because the last time she fell asleep on the cot, she woke up with Hedwig spooning her. She's probably assuming he couldn't sneak up on her as easily if she's on the ground. Also, as a survivor, not wanting to spend any more time on that cot makes sense. James McAvoy doesn't even care. Although his moves are pretty sweet. Also surprised this shot wasn't used for the trailer. That little break to smile.
I know.
Self-confidence. More little background clues. Love it. He's a kid, so drawings of animals, stuffed animals, and figurines. But it's because he lives at a zoo and probably steals from the gift shop.
Represents the highest form of human's evolution. He believes the time of ordinary humanity is over.
You know, the last time you went up against a guy who believes stuff like that, you were telling Jean Grey to let go and unleash her power. So what happened, X? Nope. Not the last time she'll have to face down a dark figure with a shotgun.
This place is closed.
No, it's okay.
You can't get in.
No, it's okay.
It's actually crazy more of us didn't figure out it was a zoo. Not that it really matters that much, but once you add all the pieces together, it seems so obvious.
Her optical nerves regenerated because of her beliefs.
So this is interesting, but probably not based entirely in reality. As far as DID accuracy goes, to paraphrase Nebula's insights, it's kind of like another case of your perception is your reality. If one alter believes they've broken a bone and another doesn't, the bone is most likely not physically broken. However, that doesn't change the experience of the alter who believes the bone is broken. Healing bones or blindness through DID is getting more into comic book territory.
When you said that you thought this situation was extraordinary...
Okay, so I know the connections to Unbreakable should be obvious to anyone that's seen the Glass trailer, but extraordinary was Elijah Price's word. Could be a coincidence, could just be Shyamalan tying the two together thematically, or Mr. Glass has been grooming the Beast.
He believes we are extraordinary.
Where else would the Beast get that idea? Dennis had never even heard Fletcher say it before tonight.
Help me. This is an egregious wrong. His identity is monstrous.
It would be easy to be critical of Dr. Fletcher at this point for not seeing the writing on the wall and trying to plead with someone who's currently keeping girls captive in their underwear. But a few things. As much as she has therapy sessions with Kevin, something else that Nebula and I agreed on was that she seems more concerned with research than actually helping Kevin. So sacrificing her work by just leaving and calling the cops would be a tough decision. And if you don't like that cynical approach, she sort of sacrifices herself for them in the only way she can think of, by blocking the strike box.
Thank you, Dennis.
Visually, I love these blackout cuts back and forth between Dennis and Patricia, and Nebula confirmed that it would be like this, almost like teleporting for each alter. Pretty solid clue that Kevin's father didn't leave, but died on that train, confirming the connection to Eastrail 177. Another dolly zoom, this time bringing it all in, making the Beast fill up the train car. Which, obviously, train car, of course his father leaving on one would make it significant to him. This piece of music, building towards the reveal of the Beast. Ooh. Scenes like these are like anti-wife wins. She audibly murmurs at unrelenting situations like this. Which is the intended effect. Sorry, sweetie. Anti-wife win. James McAvoy's workout routine? I'll give that a brutal. These satisfying moments are one thing that Shyamalan has always succeeded at. Just a simple pan-around reveal. Kinda brutal? To be fair, there are a lot of imperfections on that plaster wall, so like, it's just awesome that we're showing the Beast doing the one thing Dr. Fletcher mentioned as tinfoil hat worthy. Good stuff.
I swear I was on a bus. I don't remember anything after that.
This moment of reprieve from the terror, it's like taking a breath for the first time in 10 minutes. Kevin Wendell Crumb is by far my favorite piece of music in the film. A soothing gloom that almost massages your brain into relaxation until it starts to dawn on Kevin what is actually going on, and you get notes from meeting the others where the Beast was coming into the light, almost warning our subconscious of his return.
Kill me.
And most importantly, a glimmer of sympathy for Kevin, a victim of abuse who's lost control of his own mind. Also, the fact that this is the reason his full name snaps him back into the light. Gut-wrenching. Here's an interesting continuity thing. When Kevin is cycling through all his altars, there's no blood in his face. But once Hedwig steals the light for the Horde, the blood from eating the unpure returns. I know we cross into fantasy with the Beast, but you could look at the veins filling with excess blood as extra adrenaline, which would make him temporarily stronger, like the lady lifting the car off the baby effect. Brutal egg.
I'm going to take care of you. You won't be giving me any trouble, will you?
Badass bad guy? What? You can't take 2 shotgun shells to the body?
You are different from the rest.
I've never dealt with abuse, I've never dealt with self-harm, so I don't know what, if anything, this makes people who have feel. All I can say is that this scene makes me tear up, and I sincerely hope that it's not exploitative, but cathartic. I'll say that I don't think it's a superficial ploy using these two very real, very prevalent afflictions. I think the way the film and Casey hold on to her trauma so close, once it's revealed, it just breaks me. It's really all I can say.
The broken are the more evolved.
So if he spares her because she's broken, how do you think he'll feel about someone who's unbreakable? It's not really a twist, but the fact that the beast picked up traits from the different animals where he lives does add another level to that identity. Ha! He's on a catwalk. Yeah, you done screwed up, Vince. Might as well keep those orange headphones now, Vince. Vince.
Third deceased name of Dr. Karen Fletcher. Still trying to locate the family.
She said earlier that her patients are her family.
Your uncle's here. You ready to go?
Slightly ambiguous, but to me this means she's definitely going to say something this time.
Mr. Glass.
Oh, snap. Obviously, this is amazing. I don't even know if you'd call this a twist, but either way, Shyamalan pulled the rug out from under us again. I also love the name tag. I'm not joking here, guys. It's really him. I want to start with something that I think is important, especially coming from the positive movie guy. Hollywood has a bad habit of taking mental conditions and making them evil. Simply put, not all people with DID are hiding a secret evil identity. Probably and hopefully goes without saying, but it has to be really annoying to see yourself represented one way so often to the point that people completely misunderstand the disorder. Nebula confirmed that while there are some, there aren't a ton of great options for realistic portrayals. I'm not saying I need Shyamalan to throw disclaimers in all of his movies. It's just unfortunate, I guess. I will say that tying the film into a comic book universe is really the only recontextualization that sort of excuses some of these issues. Kevin isn't really suffering from DSM-5 DID. He's a comic book villain. That's all. And going back through, the movie does an okay job of separating the two through Dr. Fletcher's research and the fact that the scientific and medical community don't really agree with her. Anyway, on to the movie. Shyamalan. Shyamalama ding dong. I don't know, there's something really satisfying thinking about him sitting there in his room planning this out. We know he wanted to make an Unbreakable sequel almost immediately after, but then he misstepped a few times. So he's there, sitting in the dark, rubbing his hands together. They'll see. Not only am I going to make a comeback with a genuinely solid, entertaining, and moving thriller, but it's also going to be a secret origin story for the villain in my next movie. The long-awaited sequel. It gives me a lot of joy, to say the least. Especially considering that he was laying it all on the line. If Split tanked, making Glass would have been a really tough sell. You gotta respect him for doubling down. I mean, the real twist is that in the annals of history, this will be a supervillain origin story, not a horror movie. That's just... So I started this video talking about the cinematography, and you might find yourself thinking, well, great, Shyamalan found himself a good DP who knew what he was doing. And you're not wrong. Mike Giolakis' style is hardwired into the film. The creepingly slow zooms you just barely notice as if the camera needs to get away from Dennis without Dennis knowing it. The uncomfortable close-ups during revealing conversations. And his general framing throughout different scenes is simply beautiful. It Follows is probably his biggest work where you get to see a lot of his style come through. But Shyamalan worked with my man Andrew Lesnie before. Stuff just doesn't always work out. In some perfect confluence of events, you got Shyamalan meshing with a DP that produced story and character-driven cinematography where you can feel the purpose of every shot. But to be really honest, I have to get into the weeds a little here, but it's to illustrate a point that's central to my channel's overall message. So writer, director, and DP working well together is important, but without someone to edit that vision together, you still got nothing. Luke I'm sorry, man. Luke edited this film as well as The Visit, and he worked on After Earth, a movie no one would say isn't edited well, and, you guessed it, The Last Airbender, which was DP'd by Andrew Lesnie, if he didn't get that. You know, this Andrew Lesnie. But Luke was just an apprentice on Last Airbender. The lead editor was Conrad Buff IV. So now you're thinking, aha, well, there's your problem. The editing in that movie is nonsensical at times. Right, the guy who edited Titanic, T2 Judgment Day, and The Abyss. So, what the heck, right? Shyamalan is a good writer and director. Laugh all you want, but most people don't get lucky even 3 times if you want to be stingy, 5 or 6 if you want to be generous. And everyone else that worked on things with him that flopped have some degree of pedigree of success. But just because the writer-director of The Sixth Sense, the DP from Rise of the Planet of the Apes, the editor of T2, and just for fun, the composer from The Dark Knight, art director from Pacific Rim and The Avengers, and the casting director from the Grand Budapest Hotel, let that one sink in. Just because they all work together, there's still no assurance of anything. My point is that this doesn't just happen. It's not easy. There are no foregone conclusions. The stars need to align, which is why any amount of success should be celebrated. And it may just be as simple as Shyamalan and Lesnie struggle to communicate well, so he doesn't get the shots he needs, which leaves Buff out in the cold when he goes to cut the thing together, and then he and Shyamalan get their wires crossed, and when they try to fix it, you end up with this. Other times you end up with this. Both are why I'm here making these videos. Alright, out of the weeds. Crew, consider yourself celebrated. Which is still only half of the equation. And it's not like McAvoy is any guarantee of anything either. But when you watch him in something like this, you start to realize that any failures in his career are probably not on him. McAvoy just grabs your attention every single time he's on screen. His talent shines through every moment, from the subtle to the overt. It's like he changes his facial structure sometimes to become a different alter, in between the creepy but also kinda endearing kid who always has more to say,
etc.
and the super extra fashion designer who was actually just the OCD pervert in disguise. He created something special. One of the criticisms I've seen is that Shyamalan devalues abuse by basically using the adage, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Some people who have dealt with real abuse, specifically sexual assault, feel like it diminishes the very real trauma and PTSD these survivors have gone and still go through. I totally understand that. But I also think there's an answer to it within the film. There's a bit of darkness to the ending that you might miss. Casey doesn't actually beat the beast. You see, Casey and Kevin Crumb, or Casey, are two sides of the same coin. Survivors who took very different paths. Which, side note, is such an obvious and genius tie into Unbreakable, we should all feel dumb for not guessing the connection before it was revealed. But Kevin's mind fractured to cope with trauma and created other identities to protect himself, whereas Casey, who up until the end is not only still trapped in her abuse, shrunk inside herself, purposely getting into trouble to be alone, and always pulling away from potential friends. So Shyamalan presents us with both options, obviously leading us to believe that Casey would overcome, but she can't, because this isn't our universe. No amount of trauma or preparation or being stronger because she wasn't killed made her able to overpower the beast. It was only his mythos and recognition of a parallel soul that saved her. He let her go when she had no options left. And while she does a heck of a job escaping and manipulating to get to this point, even pulling the trigger this time, in the end, it's the beast's strength through trauma that ultimately mattered. I honestly think Shyamalan's point is a tad muddled and more about the comic nature of the universe than a statement about abuse survivors, but I think it's interesting nonetheless. While you can't beat your trauma has some truth to it, it's still a terrible message in and of itself. But, in finally pulling that trigger, for better or worse, this is a look of someone who's ready to stand up to her abuser and hopefully find a way out. This will be a hard opinion of mine to swallow, but the beast's line,
"The broken are the more evolved,"
while maybe romanticizing trauma a little, may also be what sparks Casey's resolve. Difficult because Dennis is just another abuser, while the beast is more like a force of nature, kind of a twisted response to surviving abuse. This is another one of those times I heard myself back and realized I wasn't explaining my thoughts well enough. Just because she had an emotional response doesn't mean the beast is right or justified. Not every survivor would be triggered the same way. Real life isn't usually a few poignant moments that change the course of your life. For most people, it's a daily struggle. Trauma isn't romantic, it mostly just sucks. Everyone finds their own way to deal with it and hopefully rise above it. With the way this video is structured, it's actually hard to really appreciate how solid and suspenseful this movie is. There are a lot of long pauses inside long takes with characters just staring. It's in these moments that Shyamalan reminds us he knows how to build tension and direct actors. He gets amazing performances out of his cast and is never afraid to bring the camera right in. Even though Glass isn't a critical darling yet, I'm still going to see it and I'm still sincerely excited for it. If it tanks, I hope it doesn't end Shyamalan's career. I guarantee he has a few more solid stories up his sleeve. And I'm just genuinely curious to see how he meshes all these characters together. I'm a fan of the Glass opening credits all split apart coming back together because in reality, they're unbreakable.
This is gonna get so many views.
End shadowing. You know, because YouTube.
We about to salt bay your ass.
I mean, is that bad? That doesn't sound bad. Have you seen his technique? Comic book realities should still have catchphrases. Checks out.
Pretty much settled on the Overseer.
Also superhero names as well. And Overseer is fantastic. It's not like there's a lot of names left. Love that even the background noise is setting up the film. Never so much as an extraneous detail from Shyamalan. Even the camera movements mirror Hedwig's personality with a long take spin around the room.
And I don't want him coming and finding roller skates on his feet.
And let's just sing James McAvoy's praises again for a minute and a half uncut scene as Hedwig.
One of the tenants got murdered.
But she essentially called me chubby, so it's whatever.
Hey, do I know you?
The beast is still all about that train life, which we know makes sense. You could say that the homeless are broken, so it's not supposed to be a threat, but if I saw this dude get all methed up and claim to be me, let's just say I'd be holding on tight to my skin. Alright, here's the action we came for, Unbreakable v Split. In all seriousness, in a movie I never really expected much action, it's executed fairly well. Even a sweet snorri cam long take. I feel like the idea of a oneer or long take means less coming from Shy Guy because it's his go-to auteur framing device. Still works. Ha! Might as well say kryptonite.
Please don't. Easy. No. Hey, it's cool. It doesn't like to be touched.
Continuity from Split with Hedwig the Light Stealer. And I don't think I mentioned how much I love the inner workings of Kevin's mind and the hierarchy as well as divided factions after the Beast's arrival. It's also well thought out and internally consistent.
My name is Dr. Ellie Staple.
Man, we should have known that Staple would be the opposite of Glass, since she ends up being his actual foe. I wouldn't expect anything less from Shy Bro, but having just watched Unbreakable, yes, I'll get to it still, I promise. I know that Type 1 is correct. Elijah actually makes a point of it.
Tells us all new rules of conduct, how to treat people with kindness.
That's actually usually one of Lenny Bruce's strengths. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're missing out. Quick visual update on Casey after the events of Split. She's showing her bare arms, she's carrying herself more confidently, and she even seems happier.
We really can do things that you can't do.
Flirting. Just another James McAvoy is a god actor among men moment.
The Horde would have killed you. Lightning, that's some buttery shit.
Stop talking! Where's the man in the rain poncho?
He cycles through a bunch of alters we've never even met before, but without even saying a word, we recognize Patricia. That's talent. Chekhov's pothole. No, you know what? Screw you, pothole.
I'm a professor of cinema, specifically Japanese, 1950s to the 1980s.
Said every kid who's seen both Seven Samurai and Akira.
I am not an...
That transition to Hedwig. I just want to point out two similar scenes shot by Mike Giolakis that achieve similar goals in different ways. The first is a long take where the Horde is trying to manipulate Daryl so they can steal his keycard. The camera whipping back and forth never allows you to know where Kevin is or who might be in control of him. It's unnerving. The other is a shot reverse shot where the cameras are locked down and Hedwig is allowed to leave the frame, but you always feel secure because we know Staple is in control. Ironically, both end with Patricia taking control of the conversation and the camera as it starts to move with her. Goodness, Shy Lad.
He was in it, you know.
This works on multiple levels. Staple is clearly intelligent, but she also knows the truth about David. Joseph's expertly planned out story could actually work on a normal psychologist.
I'll sign that in front of a judge. So you see, he shouldn't be here.
And of course, acting chops.
Broke her arm and ribs.
And this is exactly why vigilantism is illegal, and everything that Dr. Staple is saying is technically true whether she has ulterior motives or not. Shy Boy does some risky camera work here, never cutting back to the speaker, but it allows us to experience this entire conversation from Joseph's perspective. And another camera movement that perfectly showcases how Joseph is feeling after that conversation. So many feelings from that. Meta levels of sadness fading from a superior movie's deleted scene with a more upbeat and hopeful score back to the despondent score and pretty much overall tone of this movie.
Can I talk with them?
No.
Why?
You're the victim.
In hindsight, using the V word almost feels like a deliberate slight by Staple to make sure that Casey would insist on talking to Kevin. I mean, she's like the definition of a survivor.
That Nikki and Drake broke up and you can't like both.
Music recommendations.
My uncle's in jail. I put him there.
I had a hard time in Split crediting the Beast as Casey's catalyst for escaping her uncle, but now I'm just happy it's confirmed she did. Don't really care how.
I can't.
I've
got to go. I've got to go.
Man, you can feel that. Kevin's brief acceptance that it's not his fault and that he recognizes a similar soul in Casey, and then the weight of everything comes crashing down on him and he needs to retreat out of the light.
You like Kevin now?
Chekhov's cameras.
There is nowhere you can go that won't be documented.
Also, in hindsight, you can convince yourself, as I choose to do, that Elijah has a slight smirk on his face since cameras are exactly what he wants. You could also say that knowing David is in the same place as him reinvigorated him, just like Staple says later.
If there is one of you, the opposite of you appears, it escalates. It would be an honor to get to know your perspicacious mind.
I usually only do this for words that I use, but I think this deserves a CinemaWins Word of the Week vocab lesson. Not exactly sure, but the two visible weights are 45 pounds, and there's no reason to think the others aren't as well. That makes that 450 pounds total, which is 100 pounds heavier than David lifted in Unbreakable. Plus, probably another 45 pounds for the bar.
Evan Wendell Crumb.
A dolly zoom so slow it makes you feel nauseated.
Casey, she...
I'll never get tired of Kevin's theme, even as a whimper. Not just Elijah's head is at a Dutch tilt.
These professional guessers, David. Simply extraordinary at it.
But like, isn't that the point anyway? Aren't magicians who can truly convince you magic is real basically superpowered? Isn't that literally Elijah's point? Is she some kind of genius? Using things they already know to cause doubt? Yeah, let's go with that.
Saw an adult acting like a child.
the bill of someone with this disorder, intuitive.
Oh, Hedwig's expressions.
Analyzed the shotgun and the cartridges. They were very old. The cartridges were possibly compromised.
I read some complaints that this was all a waste of time because we know that each of them is superpowered, and while I agree that I believed they were, I never truly saw anything in any of the movies that wasn't explainable, even the climbing on walls. But again, that's the point. The only real superpower could be David's sin sense, but who are we to say that wasn't just a visual representation of his intuition? Brain dead or seeing right through the whole charade?
Action Comics #1 launched, with the man in the cape and the blue tights on the cover.
Ha! Same actor playing the clerk that still just wants to get some chicken in him.
You're not one of those Hello Kitty pervs.
Exactly what Elijah believed in Unbreakable, that comics were exaggerations based on real events. Never gives up the twitching. Cool-headedness in the face of some extreme potential pain. And legitimately nothing has made me clench quite like this in a long time.
Tired, man. You still taking that multivitamin? Not like I should.
Even though Daryl might be a little annoying, he's not the evil, abusive orderly. In fact, he's pretty nice overall, which was a risky character decision that I respect. Plus, he's got a pretty beautiful beard. What do you know? Accurate internet. Dates line up. Not insane that a genius like Elijah would remember a name from a manifest of people he murdered. Gee, I wonder who Shy Chap is jabbing at in this cover. You trying to say that Hulk isn't a real Marvel? It's actually smarter than even that, since these characters are real people with powers that can be explained by science, meaning they are real comic characters.
Ma'am, to see if the tales of the extraordinary being are real.
Patricia, but I appreciate your manners.
Politeness. Genuinely, it's a testament to Elijah's mental prowess to play to Patricia like that, but also just plain nice.
I heard you look past the capes and monologuing villains.
Says the monologuing villain. It's deliberate misdirection, wink wink, nudge nudge.
First name Mr., last name Glass.
Sure, it's cheesy, but we've also kind of been waiting for that owning your identity moment since the ending of Unbreakable. He only realizes it in the last frame of the film, and even then it's like a dark cloud. Now he owns it. Resourceful, but still naive. Ugh, brutal. Second time Shyamalan has made me feel queasy. Heyo, reflections in eyes. Ha, 'cause glass. Get it. More dancing skills from Hedwig.
I've had 94 breaks in my life.
Mr. Glass is like the definition of the broken being more evolved, in case you didn't catch that.
That sounds like the bad guys teaming up.
Teamwork? Ooh, that snort. Bear hug and gorilla smash. Remember all the animals? Could not ask for a better score as we build towards the finale we'll never get. This is where Shy Buddy shines, focusing on the reaction rather than the action.
Thousands are expected to come out for the ceremony.
We have a code 3.
Patients are planning to go to the public opening of the Osaka Tower, the tallest building.
And once Staples' true motivation is revealed, this little freakout of hers makes even more sense. Look, it's clear that there was no money for a big showdown at a fake tower. At this point, it's clear there wasn't enough money or time to really get a huge epic fight at all. And even though he keeps promising it, it's not what most of us were here for anyway. So I'm gonna keep winning the inventive filmmaking, shooting the car flip from inside the car.
Keep patients and staff away from the south side windows.
Every move she makes at this point is about hiding the truth, but you could still interpret it as just not wanting to rile the patients up. This time we only see the action from inside the van from the maid's perspective. You know, because that's what this is all about. Everyone else learning the truth. At least the Beast's moves are consistent. And now we know why they keep cutting to security footage.
I'm just trying to save you!
They seem to be equally strong, but you can learn everything you need to know about the Beast and the Overseer by this fight. David pushes them into a container to protect them, and the Beast knocks them down one by one, injuring them or, you know, just eating them along the way.
Kevin's dad didn't just take any train and not come home.
He took the train my dad was on.
Anyone who watched my split video knew this was coming. I think a lot of us thought it was supposed to be implicit. Still, I could see the casual viewer having a little aha moment, and it was actually smart of Shyamalan to do this twist fake out since there's still another twist or, well, couple, I guess, coming. Also, how come you didn't just read his mind, X? Makes it even more heartbreaking when you realize he was on the cusp of helping his son.
I create superheroes.
Create is a strong word. I think it's fair to say that you assemble them?
We still haven't settled that kneeling thing.
Well, his last line in the film is a joke, but you know what? It's kind of the David Dunn way. Never about being flashy. He's just trying to do the right thing. Hugging. I like that the three-leaf clover is just a common plant. Like, common, without powers. Humans. Okay, it's about to get not so winning up in here. But what? Shyamalan! You dragged one of our favorite characters back into the light to drown him in a puddle? Just to make a point? I'm not even willing to stretch to say that David being able to break the tank while underwater makes any sense just because he hadn't been completely weakened by the water yet. All he has to do is stand up against one guy. It would have stung if there were like 8 guys holding him down. I would have maybe felt that there was nothing he could do, but one goon after he just broke the fiberglass tank while underwater. I feel cheated. And look, I get it. He drowns in a puddle because he believes water is his weakness, and that's the point. Identity, I get it. Doesn't make it any less infuriating. You didn't have to use David like that. There's a lot to unpack here. Some of us might feel icky because Casey was the Horde's victim, and yet she's Kevin's only friend. Obviously, the situation is unique, and trying to throw any pop psychology at it isn't gonna work. I'll say this. The Beast is a villain, a bad guy, a serial killer. Patricia is at best an accomplice, but she's really just as guilty as the Beast, as is Dennis regardless of his remorse at this point. Hedwig is tricky because he's a minor, so I'm not even sure how that works. Also, this is heartbreaking.
I like being 9.
But Kevin is just another victim of abuse, and he's the identity that Casey connects with. And as I very cautiously said in my split video, her time with Kevin and the Beast are what led her to escaping the ongoing abuse from her uncle. It's still all a little icky, but we get to choose who we have empathy for, Casey included. One more win for this score. This is part of the track called Unraveling by Wes Dylan Thornton, and it's a solid theme for Staple.
There just can't be gods amongst us.
Tell that to Injustice.
Be at peace.
I mentioned Staple was Glass's real enemy, but I'm also realizing a little more on the nose metaphor in her name. Glass may create superheroes, but Staple is the one that put them all together. Like when you staple a comic book together?
Take consolation in the fact that you were right about your theory.
And Staple still doesn't see herself as the bad guy. She thinks she's doing what needs to be done and attempting to do it as humanely as possible. The Justice League does know about them. Also, oh, really, Shy Hombre? This is a tragedy? You don't say. Another supervillain with parental issues.
I gave him all the cameras he needed.
The movie is called Glass. It's his movie where he's going to remove some glass to stop his lobotomy and then use some other glass to escape and even more glass to record the truth. And just like Superman started the age of superpowered beings, the Beast sets it off by lifting a car at the advent of real-life supers.
Action Comics #1 launched, with the man in the cape and the blue tights on the cover.
Okay. So here's the deal. I've tried to rewrite this about a dozen times now, but I keep coming back to a lot of the same problems. This conclusion might let some of you down, so I'm just warning you now and hopefully offering an explanation. I have some different complaints, but my main issue is David Dunn's death. And if I'm being honest, his insignificant death really hit home for me because the night I started writing this script, I had to put one of our 5 chickens down. I know, I'm sure it sounds ridiculous, especially to any farmers, but our chickens aren't just livestock for us, they're our pets. We raise them all from chicks, Jude adores them, and they're just these innocent little ladies that follow you around the yard. And Poppy was probably the sweetest. I won't go into detail, but her death was as meaningless as David's. No circle of life, just senseless fatal maiming. So if I come off bitter, I'm sorry. I still have plenty of positive things to say, it's just probably more negative than usual. And I'll gladly accept feedback about this conclusion. So here's something I don't usually say. I don't really like this movie. I don't think it's a bad movie by any stretch or poorly made. I'm just not a fan of some of the choices made. Shyamalan took risks. He told the story he's clearly been setting up from the beginning and made an attractive film. But in the process of getting his signature twists in there, he pulled the rug out from underneath us. A rug he physically pushed us onto multiple times. In a somewhat insulting way. The big showdown at the Osaka Tower that no one asked for, expected, or wanted that would never happen was the rug. Then he killed every main character in some anticlimactic ways. It's also clear to me that he wrote this ending in 2000 when virality was in its infancy, deepfakes hadn't even been thought of, and studio-level visual effects weren't in the hands of every YouTuber. I'm just saying that Captain Disillusion would have a field day with this footage. The amount of fake crap we're fed on a daily basis would mean no one is buying this. But that doesn't even really bother me. I like to think I'm a pretty easygoing guy, but kill the hero? Yeah. I get it. Fine, kill my hero unceremoniously that I've been waiting to see again for 2 decades, and I might whinge a little. And the thing is, while proving your point about us dumb consumers who only watch big dumb Marvel movies that go on forever and never end, you crushed our spirits. Unbreakable is this triumphant movie about a guy accepting his identity and duty, connecting with his son, letting his unbreakable guard down with his wife, all while having powers grounded in reality. David Dunn could exist. I mean, his powers make sense. Maybe his bones don't break because they're extra dense, which also makes him sink in water. There are explanations for most powers in these movies. David Dunn was a character that gave everyone hope because he is a hero. and you drowned him in a puddle for a twist about a secret organization only to undo it with another twist 10 minutes later. Yay! I guess I'll just say I won't be returning to this movie anytime soon, but while I don't love it, I get why he did it and what the movie is trying to say. I also get that this isn't David's movie. And it's not like there's a whole lot more that can be done in a fight between these two. They're both just strong brawlers. The Beast likes to crush or eat his opponents, and David usually just chokes them out while he stays as unbreakable as he can. I thought the lack of spectacle was sort of the point. Even from the beginning of Unbreakable, Elijah said that the comics were an exaggeration of reality. So that's what we came to see, the reality. Even with all that said, I don't think the issue here is that people didn't get it. I find the story to be coherent and internally consistent as well as consistent within the trilogy. It's just not the movie some of us wanted. And there were some things I really liked. Color is obviously important. David in his good guy, life-giving green, Elijah in his royal purple that carries over from Unbreakable, and Kevin in religious yellow since the Horde essentially worships the Beast. Even Staple is often represented by pink or red, with the color being drained from it, representing her unending assault on their super's belief in themselves. And then each secondary character ends the movie with their counterparts' colors. Speaking of counterparts, while I'm still somewhat uneasy about Casey's arc, I'm glad Kevin was finally portrayed as what he truly is, a victim. I can't tell you how glad I am that he didn't get a sinister smile at the end and reveal that he's been evil all along. It's at least a step in the right direction away from what's been perpetuated about people with DID being bad. They're not, they're just people. Another thing I will give Nightshy credit for is creating a bunch of characters who all saw themselves as the hero. They're each the protagonist of their own story.
I'm just trying to save you!
David obviously is trying to stop bad people, the Beast thinks of himself as the broken, and Kevin's avenging angel. Even Staple tries to gaslight the supers into believing they aren't super in order to spare them, all in an attempt to protect the normies. Mr. Glass is the hardest sell, but I'll get to that in a bit. Again, it's not all bad and it's not poorly done. Ultimately, this movie is the fulfillment of Elijah's vision or belief from Unbreakable. His thesis was correct and his message is, dare I say, not the worst. You sort of need to step outside the literal hero-villain suppressor dichotomy and look at it more superficially. We have an organization that's trying to keep a certain group of people down, to the point of trying to trick them into thinking they're something they're not, or straight up murdering them because they don't think their existence is fair to the rest of the world. 3 members of that group dying on a grand stage to let the world know they do exist is meaningful. David and the Beast didn't know what they were dying for, but Mr. Glass did, and just like Unbreakable, he's the one that's smart enough to make that terrible decision for everyone, no matter the cost. And that even includes him. He's been in Arkham 1.0 since the end of Unbreakable, and his plan gets him killed this time. And while I still don't love the twists, Shyamalan did an interesting thing with them. He may have pushed it too far with the Osaka Tower teasing, but you can almost look at the entire movie as one big setup for the twist. He brazenly spends the movie jamming comic book references and tie-ins to lore down our throats.
That sounds like the bad guys teaming up.
He's the anarchist. He's the brains. He's the reluctant hero. This all sounds very familiar.
I create superheroes.
I heard you look past the capes and monologuing villains.
He even has our mains face off for a big showdown. And then, poof, nope, we're still in the real world. There's no big showdown, this isn't a comic book. Plans go awry, good deeds don't go unpunished. Even the all-powerful secret cult of comic haters loses in the end. And as far as plot structure is concerned, I don't think the third act is particularly sloppy or that Knight didn't know what he was doing. Act 2 is slow and prodding and David doesn't do anything, but it was all in service of his sleight of hand in the third.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Shyamalan has had missteps. I don't believe this is one of them. He's a smart guy and he creates beautiful art. Pair him with McAvoy's one-man play and Jackson stepping right back into Mr. Glass, and yeah, Bruce Willis is even fun to watch when he's just there. I will say that I love seeing him with Spencer Treat Clark from Unbreakable, and their scenes together were some of my favorites.
Do not mention the Tiptoe Man ever again.
Even Sarah Paulson pulled out a great performance as Exposition Queen, who is the best of a group of bad people. Like I said, Mr. Glass sees himself as the hero as well. Whether his goal of revealing superpowered people to the masses matters, or is altruistic, as it seems to be presented, is up to you. I get that he was looking for his place in the world, and you could argue was trying to help supers out of hiding. Great. He's a terrible person. He killed thousands of people, even kills another totally innocent guy just to serve his purpose. I guess I just can't get on board with that, even if Shyamalan apparently does. He believes in Mr. Glass, which is why we get this triumphant moment at the end. Ozymandias had an actual solution to a problem, and we can debate the morality of it forever. Glass primarily just didn't want to feel like a mistake. It was fine when he was just the self-serving bad guy, but also, and it's a big also, self-aware bad guy in Unbreakable. But then it's his plan that succeeds and we're supposed to feel hopeful at the end? I mean, I always felt like he's slightly remorseful in the end of Unbreakable when he realizes who he is in this story. I don't know. Should I not do movies when I have such a strong negative opinion? You tell me. I've removed movies from my schedule in the past, but I thought I would come around on this one or find a different angle. I know people really liked it, and I honestly didn't hate it. I love Unbreakable, and I feel like Glass spits in Unbreakable's face, or at least David's. I've seen beloved characters die before and still loved the movie. It's not just that he died, it's that it meant nothing. I didn't know quite how annoyed I was until I started trying to defend this movie. There's plenty to enjoy. I don't even hate the final message. I just hate that Shyamalan Ding Dong thought he needed to teach us all a lesson. I don't think any of us wanted a Marvel movie out of him. All that said, not next week, but I'm happy that I kept Unbreakable until after Glass, because that's my David Dunn story. I hope this wasn't a letdown to those that loved it. I'm looking forward to reading your comments about why it works for you.
I had a bad dream.
It's over now.